Lately, have you ever felt like financial freedom is just getting further and further away? Not impossible, but just distant? Like no matter what you do, you're always trying to catch up. And it's a weird feeling, because on paper, you're doing everything right. You're working, you're earning, you're trying to be responsible, but somehow it still doesn't feel like enough. And I think a lot of people are quietly dealing with this. Not always talking about it, but definitely feeling it. Because the idea of financial freedom has always been simple. You get a job, you work consistently, you save your money, and over time, you build a stable life. But now, that path doesn't feel as reliable anymore. Now it feels like even if you do everything right, you're still barely staying ahead. And that's where the frustration starts. Because it's not just about making money anymore, it's about how far that money actually goes. Everything feels more expensive. Rent, groceries, gas, basic living. Things that used to feel manageable now feel like constant pressure. And when your expenses keep rising, but your income doesn't match that pace, you feel stuck, like you're running, but not really getting anywhere. And then there's the job itself, because even having a job now doesn't automatically mean stability. You might be working full time, putting in real effort, trying to grow, but there's always this underlying uncertainty. What if things change? What if this isn't enough long term? What if I'm falling behind without realizing it? And that constant pressure starts to affect how you think. You stop thinking long term, you stop thinking about freedom, and you start thinking about survival. Just getting through the month, just covering your expenses, just making sure everything is handled. And there's nothing wrong with that, but when that becomes your default mindset, it's hard to think beyond it. It's hard to imagine a life where money isn't constantly on your mind. And then on top of all of that, you're constantly exposed to people who seem like they've already made it. Online, on social media, on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, the list goes on and on. You see people talking about financial freedom like it's normal, like it's something everyone should already have. Passive income, multiple streams, quitting jobs, traveling freely, starting businesses, and again, even if you know that's not the full story, it still affects you. Because now it feels like you're not just trying to survive, you're trying to catch up to something. And that gap between where you are and where you feel like you should be feels overwhelming. And I think that's where a lot of people lose motivation. Not because they don't care, but because the goal feels too far away. When something feels unreachable, it's hard to stay consistent because your brain starts thinking, what's the point? And that's a dangerous place to be because that's when you stop trying. But here's something I've been thinking about. Maybe the problem isn't just the distance. Maybe it's how we define financial freedom. Because when you think about it, a lot of people imagine it as this huge end goal. No stress, no job, complete freedom. And yeah, that does sound great, but also feels far away, because it is. So instead of thinking of it like that, what if it's something you build in layers? Not all at once, not overnight, but gradually. Maybe it starts with small things. Having a bit of savings, having less stress about bills, having even a small extra income. Those things might not feel like freedom, but they move you in that direction. And that shift in thinking actually matters a lot, because when the goal feels smaller, it feels more achievable. And when something feels achievable, you're more likely to work towards it. And that's where things start to change. Not because everything suddenly gets easier, but because you start building momentum. And momentum is what most people are missing. Not talent, not intelligence, momentum. Even small progress, repeated over time, creates real change. And that applies to everything. Your skills, your income, your mindset. But it requires one thing. You have to start, even if it's small. Even if it feels like it won't make a difference. Because doing nothing definitely won't. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They're waiting for a big opportunity, a big change, a big breakthrough. But most of the time, progress doesn't look like that. It looks like small steps, repeated consistently. Learning something new, trying something different, building something slowly. And yeah, it's not exciting at first, it's not glamorous, but it works. Because over time, those small efforts start to separate you from where you were before. And that's when financial freedom stops feeling like a fantasy and starts feeling like something you're actually moving towards. Not there yet, but not stuck anymore either. And honestly, that might be the most important shift from feeling stuck to feeling like you're progressing. Because once you feel progress, you keep going. And that's what makes the difference over time. Not one big move, but consistent movement. And maybe the way we've been thinking about financial freedom is part of the problem. Because a lot of the time, it's treated like this one big destination. This point where everything is solved, where money is no longer a concern, where life just becomes easy. But that version of financial freedom feels far away for a reason. Because it's not something that happens all at once. It's something that's built, piece by piece. And maybe instead of chasing the end goal, it makes more sense to focus on reducing pressure. Because that's what most people are feeling right now. Pressure. Pressure to earn more, pressure to keep up, pressure to not fall behind, pressure to start something new, pressure to learn something, pressure to go back to school. And when everything feels like pressure, it's hard to think clearly. So instead of trying to fix everything at once, focus on small wins, things that actually make your situation a little easier, like building even a small emergency buffer. Not something huge, just enough to give you breathing room, or becoming more aware of where your money is going. Not to restrict yourself completely, but to understand your habits, or even exploring ways to increase your income. Not by overloading yourself, but by slowly building something on the side. Because financial freedom isn't just about making more money, it's about creating stability. It's about reducing stress. It's about having even a little bit of control over your situation. And that control starts small. It starts with awareness. It starts with small decisions. It starts with consistency. And the truth is, you don't need to have everything figured out right now. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to solve your entire financial future today. That's where a lot of the stress comes from. Trying to figure out everything all at once. But life doesn't work like that. Progress doesn't work like that. It's built over time, through small, consistent steps. So instead of asking, how do I become financially free? Maybe a better question is, what's one thing I can do to make my situation slightly better? Because that's realistic, that's actionable, and that's how momentum starts. And once you start building momentum, things begin to feel different. Not perfect, but manageable. And that matters more than you think. Because when things feel manageable, you stop feeling stuck. And when you stop feeling stuck, you start moving forward, even if it's slowly. And in a world where everything feels overwhelming, moving forward at your own pace is already a win. That was our conversation topic for today. Stay tuned for more. If you enjoyed, like the video and subscribe. We'll chat again soon. Peace.